Hi everyone, my name is Leyla Salvade. I'm the founder of Standing Light. Welcome to the LightStyle Interview Series. Today I'm so excited to share this space with Gemma Gambee. Welcome.
Thank you.
Gemma is a meditation teacher and creative strategist. I'm so excited to shine a light on you today.
I'm so excited to have your light shined on me.
Thank you. So we just literally met for the first time right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Through a mutual friend, Saw, who's also a part of this series.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about what you're doing, how you're shining your light into the world, because I heard some incredible things and I would love to share it.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I am most excited about teaching meditation these days. So I have a history of working in the fashion industry, mostly, and I work mostly as a creative director, trend forecaster, concept designer, and brand strategist. I also work a little bit with different art organizations and film companies. But for the past 2 years, after many years of studying and self-practice, I've started to teach meditation.
Beautiful.
And it's just the most amazing thing to be able to share this gift with other people and to watch their development and the successes and the ease that starts to flow into their life as a result of our time together and these tools that I'm getting to teach them that I've been taught by amazing teachers. So yeah, it feels all lit up, lots of light.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so what was your journey? How did you get there to what you're doing now?
Well, how did I get there? For me, it started when I was little. I was I was a little kid who liked to go to church. I came from a very spiritual Irish Catholic family in upstate New York. And watching my grandparents and my parents with their connection to God and to their own spirit within was a model for me to be able to understand very quickly and very intimately at a very young age what that connection was like. Yeah. So yeah, I liked to go to church when I was little. So I was raised Catholic, but from a very young age I was always very confused when I heard about different religions arguing. I just didn't really understand why everybody was, what they were arguing about, because from my perspective, my very limited perspective at that age, was that they were saying mostly the same thing.
Right. Exactly.
So in high school, and it started because my parents, the two families argued over, my sister and I, which religion we would be. Would we be Protestant or Catholic? And so growing up, going to two different churches and being in communities where I experienced and felt love at the same depth and the same quality, but just with slight variations in tradition and some ideas were different. So in high school, I started to study lots of different world religions. And then in college, I started to really dive into different mysticisms and different I guess slightly more alternative expressions of connection to soul and spirit. Like an example would be Reiki. And I started my yoga practice at 19 in college and started to learn about Chinese medicine because I had a trip to China as a model when I was in college. So all that was going on, but also my big, huge, bright eyes were open to the world and wanted to take in every single thing I could. I was an international model. I was at the Art Institute of Chicago in Chicago. And I loved going to clubs and dancing and listening to varieties of different kinds of music. And I grew up with a lot of addiction in my family. So I come from a huge family, so there was definitely, my aunts and uncles were kids, they were hippies. They were doing drugs and living life and listening to music and buying cars and driving across the country. So as I started to leave home and had big eyes open for the world, I wanted to take all of it in. So I started to do drugs and go to clubs and drink and ended up living a very international life for a long time in the fashion industry, and ultimately I had these two things kind of going on: a career in the fashion industry, a spiritual interest, but sometimes I would kind of go heavier on the one side than the other. And I think what started to happen was I was getting too pulled away, and I won't go into the details right now, but ultimately I found meditation in my late 20s, early 30s. And once I really found that inner voice and that inner light that was inside of me, there was no turning back.
Out of your whole very broad experience, what would you say was that turning point, like maybe the darkest moment that kind of shot you to your higher self?
I think there's so many. For me, I've always been the type of person since I was little asking the big questions, to myself, to my parents, my grandparents, anybody I really trusted from a heart connection type of way. So for the majority of the first part of my life, I'd think of myself as a seeker. Just like you're saying, that broadness, I went in all directions. But I guess really the darkest night of my soul, and the time that I had my spirit and my light had to show up for myself. In my late 20s, early 30s, I started to experience severe, massive anxiety attacks and panic attacks. And I was so overworked and so overstressed from travel and the pressures of work and living and hustling in New York and trying to make it, that I was just overwhelmed. I was smoking a lot of weed. I wasn't really spending enough time with the deepest part of myself. So I ended up leaving New York for about 7 or 8 months. But those first 6 weeks I went home and I spent the time with my grandmother and my mom, because I was petrified to do anything. I didn't want to leave the house. I was exhausted emotionally and mentally and physically. And for me, it just manifested in such terrible, overwhelming fear of everything. And I didn't want to live with myself like that anymore. I couldn't control it. And so I was really just not wanting to be alive anymore. And I just wanted to figure out any way that I could end it. I remember even my grandmother wanted to, she was taking me to the dentist, because of course I'm coming home. Why don't I go to the doctors and the dentist and do all those things? And I remember sitting in the car and she was like, honey, the door's, right there. I could see the sidewalk into the dentist that I've been going to since I was a little girl. And I could not move. I couldn't open the door and go in there. I didn't want to sit there and be trapped. It was just, if anybody, I'm sure anyone listening to this who's had anxiety or panic can relate very well to the disorientation and the loss of really yourself. And my grandmother was just shocked, because this was, her granddaughter, her oldest granddaughter, that had traveled all over the world and went out and just did everything she wanted to do. And here she was completely weak and not able to move. So I wanted to end it all. I just felt like I was a prisoner inside of my own body. And I remember it was the middle of the night and I was up with these thoughts, and my mom was sleeping next to me because she was, concerned about me. And I just experienced all of a sudden, I was probably a mixture of praying and not praying. And I just remember experiencing this light that was inside of my chest. And it was like a little fire that was burning. And I knew clearly that that was me, and that was my connection to everything divine and everything. And from that moment forward, I knew that I was safe, and I knew that I would be fine, and I knew that I'd be able to move out of the place that I was.
Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
And what after that was the choice point that you grew towards? What then led you forward in doing what you are now? Because
so seeing that light, and you know, that was probably about, I don't know, 12 years ago or something, and I had just started meditating, and the choices were many. So I started to be able to move slightly more. I started to be able to journal and just see where I was at. I was able to make phone calls and talk to people that I needed to find some type of peace with, either forgiveness or clarity in our relationships. I was able to reach out to friends and let them know what I needed. And in response, one of my dear friends called and said, you know, why don't you come stay with me for a while? I've got this art project that I'd love you to do. And so I did that. And I went to one of my favorite counties in the US, and I spent 6 months there. And I dove into my meditation practice. I dove into my relationship with my first teacher. I dove into my relationship with my therapist. I dove into nature. I woke up every day at about 6 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. I listened to Wayne Dwyer on repeat all the time. He, to me, just is able to communicate subtlety in a Western way, subtlety of existence and the beauty of life and being a part of it. And so I started reading books. I started really looking at what alcoholism was. There was a lot of that in my family. I started to understand how it affected me as a child and as a young adult and growing up, and how my personality was developed as a result of it. And, you know, through these relationships and growing over many, many, many years, I was able to deepen my relationship to self, my teachers, my therapists, and I was able to start to deepen the relationship with the world and understand the broad beauty that's available, the variety of connections to God too, and start to just like whittle my own relationship to God within myself, or the highest power, or that thing, whatever you want to call it. And so that gave me the opportunity to have perspective on my inner landscape and who I was as a person. And it started to allow me to see the things that were serving me and the things that weren't serving me. And it started to see the opportunity that I had to make the choices to stand for the ones that I wanted to stand for as an adult and become the adult that I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is your spiritual practice now?
Now my spiritual practice is, it's a lot about seeing the God in everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, that's my day-to-day at the moment. Just really like seeing the way that a person wants to show me their love, and or else the way a person has their fear and they're scared. Whatever they're showing me, I try to look past that or through that and see the God and the beauty and the divine that's inside of them. I mean, of course, that's backed up with meditating twice a day usually. My practice is usually personally 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. But I see lots of meditation clients during the day, so I'm meditating, you know, with them too. And then I have a yoga practice, I have a Pilates practice, I do swim. Those are all parts of ways to connect to the body. And then I do have an extended meditation practice that I do about an hour a week. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. I pray, I go to churches, I do all those kinds of things. I have conversations with gorgeous, beautiful people that are shining their light on me like you.
Thank you. Yeah. That's what happens when you're standing in your light, and you attract that, right? I mean, the more we shift into that space of self-love and self-awareness and respect, we then call that in as well, I feel.
Me too.
Also the other, because then people are more attracted and they want to almost seek help from you because they see that you've arrived there in a sense.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And we never fully arrive there because we're still here on this planet. But Yeah, it's a beautiful experience, I think.
Yeah, it is a beautiful. Sometimes I think of it as just being a vessel, like a glass vessel, like it comes through us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's it. We just get to witness the flow.
And so how are you shining your light now? Where are you helping people find their own light within?
Well, through my creative strategy work, a lot of the work that I'm doing is a little bit more holistic. It's a lot more holistic. So when we work on our questionnaires and we take a deep dive into a company and we start to understand and build strategy, it's from a very holistic perspective. So we're looking at fears that the different founders and executives have around the work or the structure. We really kind of uncover those and allow those to dissipate and move so that they can be building these companies and these decisions from a place of more purity. There tends to be a lot more growth and movement that happens much quicker after the work that we do together because of that clarity and focus. So it's been amazing to be able to see how my spiritual practice is able to move into my creative strategy work. It's super exciting, and it's so not intuitive, at least in my own thinking. I thought these two things were so separate, and they're so together. My meditation work is really moving forward super quickly. I just taught at the MoMA, which they have quiet mornings the first Wednesday of every month.
I heard about that.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So I got to lead 550 people in meditation on March 1st. It was such a beautiful experience, and I had an amazing, amazing classical Indian flutist playing with me, Eric Fraser. Yeah, and then I teach at one of the leading tech hedge funds in the world. They manage about $40 billion, and they have 400 people in the New York office. And after a year and a few months, we have 20% of the population meditating, which is so exciting. Watching their lives and the community improve is such a joy for me. I also have worked with an after-school program in Harlem called the Reading Room, little kids from like 5 to 12.
Sweet.
Super sweet, super amazing. I've taught at a biochemistry research center. They're making one of the great supercomputers. A bunch of amazing MIT scientists that humbles me to work with them. I work a lot privately with a lot of different influencers. So people that work in finance and the creatives, musicians, artists. I also work with a lot of moms. I work with a lot of moms uptown, midtown, downtown, Brooklyn. They need it. They have
everyone does, yeah.
Yeah, everyone does. Everyone needs to be able to find the peace.
Yeah.
And so I have a few public offerings at the moment. One is at Spring Place, which is a beautiful new institution here downtown. And then I will be leading several different retreats over the next couple months. June I have 2, and then 1 in September. So it's just
flowing,
moving along. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It was beautiful sharing this space with you and shining a light on you. And we'll put all of Gemma's links and retreats down below so you can connect with her and hopefully catch her at another MoMA experience or at Spring Studio or wherever it may be.
It would be fantastic, and I'm so happy to get to connect with you and meet you like this.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you like this episode of the LightStyle Interview Series, please share with your friends and family, and don't forget to hit subscribe.